Yasna 10. 1. Let the demon entities and female entities treated as goddesses fly far away from hence, and let the good Sir Asha make here his home. And may the good blessedness here likewise dwell, and may she here spread delight and peace within this house, Ahuras, which is sanctified by Ha'ama, bringing righteousness to all. 2. At the first force of thy pressure, O intelligent, I praise thee with my voice, while I grasp at first thy shoots. At thy next pressure, O intelligent, I praise thee with my voice, when as with full force of a man I crush thee down. 3. I praise the cloud that waters thee, and the rains which make thee grow on the summits of the mountains, and I praise thy lofty mountains, where the Ha'ama branches spread. 4. This wide earth do I praise, expanded far with paths, the productive, the full-bearing, thy mother, holy plant. Yea, I praise the lands where thou dost grow, sweet-scented, swiftly spreading, the good growth of the Lord. O Ha'ama, thou growest on the mountains, apart on many paths, and there still mayest thou flourish. The springs of righteousness, most verily thou art, and the fountains of the ritual find their source in thee. 5. Grow, then, because I pray to thee on all thy stems and branches, and in all thy shoots and tendrils increase thou through my word. 6. Ha'ama grows while he is praised, and the man who praises him is therewith more victorious. The lightest pressure of thee, Ha'ama, thy feeblest praise, slightest tasting of thy juice, avails to the thousand smiting of the dot of us. 7. Wasting doth vanish from that house, and with it foulness, whither in verity they bear thee, and where thy praise in truth is sung, the drink of Ha'ama, famed, health-bringing, as thou art, Bazand, to his village, and abode they bear him. 8. All other toxicants go hand in hand with rapine of the bloody spear, but Ha'ama's stirring power goes hand in hand with friendship. Light is the drunkenness of Ha'ama, Bazand, who as a tender son caresses Ha'ama forth the bodies of such persons. Ha'ama comes to heal. 9. Of all healing virtues, Ha'ama, whereby thou art a healer, grant me some. Of all the victorious powers whereby thou art a victor, grant me some. A faithful praiser will I be to thee, O Ha'ama, and a faithful praiser is a better thing than righteousness the best. So hath the Lord, declaring it, decreed. 10. Swift and wise hath well skilled the well-skilled deity created thee, swift and wise. On high Har'ete did he, the well-skilled, plant thee. 11. And taught by the implanted instinct on every side the bounteous birds have carried thee to the peaks above the eagles, to the mount's extremest summit, to the gorges and abysses, to the heights of many pathways, to the snow peaks ever whitened. 12. There, Ha'ama, on the ranges dost thou grow of many kinds. Now thou growest of milky whiteness, and now thou growest golden, and forth thine healing liquors flow, for the inspiring the pious. So terrify away from me the death's aim of the curser, so terrify and crush his thoughts, who stands as my maligner. 13. Praise be to thee, O Ha'ama, for he makes the poor man's thoughts as great as any of the richest whomsoever. Praise be to Ha'ama, for he makes the poor man's thoughts as great as when the mind reaches culmination. With manifold retainers dost thou, O Ha'ama, endow the man who drinks thee mixed with milk, yea, more prosperous thou makest him, and more endowed with mind. 14. Do not vanish from me suddenly like milk drops in the rain. Let thine exhilarations go forth ever vigorous and fresh, and let them come to me with strong effect before thee, holy Ha'ama, thou bearer of the ritual truth. And around thee would I cast this body, a body which, as all may see, is fit for gift and groan. 15. I renounce with vehemence the murderous woman's emptiness. The Ga'ena's hers with intellect dethroned, she vainly thinks to foil us, and would beguile both fire priest and Ha'ama, but she herself is deceived therein, shall perish, and when she sits at home and wrongly eats of Ha'ama's offering, the priest's mother, will that never make her, nor give her holy sons. 16. To 5 do I belong, to 5 others do I not. Of the good thought am I, of the evil am I not. Of the good word am I, of the evil I am not. Of the good deed am I, of the evil not. To obedience I am given, to deaf disobedience not. To the saint do I belong, and to the wicked not. And so from this on till the ending shall be the spirits parting. The two shall here divide. 17. Thereupon spake Zarathustra, praise to Ha'ama, Mazda made, good is Ha'ama, Mazda made. All the plants of Ha'ama praise I, on the heights of the lofty mountains, in the gorges of the valleys, in the clefts of sundered hillsides. Cut for the bundles, bound by women. From the silver cup I pour thee, to the golden chalice over. Let me not thy sacred liquor spill to earth, a precious cost. 18. These are thy gathas, holy Ha'ama. These thy songs, and these thy teachings, and these thy truthful ritual words, health, imparting victory giving, from harmful hatred, healing giving. 19. These and thou art mine, and forth let thine exhilarations flow, bright and sparkling, let them hold on their steadfast way. For light are thine exhilarations, and flying lightly come they here, victory giving, smiting Ha'ama. Victory giving is it worshipped with this Gothic word, we praise it. Praise to the kind, praise and victory be spoken to her, food for the kind and pasture. For the kind, let thrift use toil. Yield thou us food. 21. We worship the yellow, lofty one, we worship Ha'ama, who causes progress, who makes the settlements advance. We worship Ha'ama, who drives death afar. Yea, we worship all the Ha'ama plants, and we worship their blessedness, and the Favasha of Zarathustra's Fatima, the saint. So, we know that it's more than one plant. And so this little stemmy thing, if you've ever seen ephedra, of course there's this tree thing too, that they would use in the Ha'ama. As I'm saying, there's one recipe had 40 plants. I'm not sure other than the basic soma. Watch my video, Soma I have found thee, because I worked and tried to get the experience of being high on soma without being soma. But it's more of a ritual enhancer, right? But yeah, the stuff with the milky white flow sap stuff. Yeah, that's that's opium, obviously. The areas like Afghanistan and Azerbaijan, it would naturally grow in the fields with the flowers, the poppies, and well, all this stuff. But it's precious because, well, not only is it use, because there's a difference. There's a difference between using stuff for ritual and stuff for fun or whatnot, and using it for healing. And certainly, people were able to survive because of certain plants that were around. And some stuff is just for getting high. It's not. It doesn't really. It's like, as much as people say drink, talk about, well, if your pills get old, you can just drink with them. No, never do that. Never do that. Well, I mean, it's not funny because people die, but so a general term as creatures to be avoided where possible, but see datha ebio eres ratum kshayas ashavau kista, and they say, yeah, I don't know. There's difficulty with some people in translations, and sometimes it just varies per the person whether something conveys something accurately or not for them. The creatures or the carpents, because creatures, creation, same thing. Being physically incarnated beings are beings that were, at the very least. I don't see any problem with that. Humans are a type of animal. We're maybe even one of the more carnal beasts than the lions and tigers and bears out there, because we have a choice there. But bringing woe by their deeds. As to the grammatical structure, all depends on senda. Shall we bring down no it from the verse above, or shall we regard senda as in the evil sense from sad, as in sadra? The Pahlavi favors the former, also in Yasna 38, verse 5. The general result is not, however, affected. Read as an alternative. No friends to the creatures are the carpans, as the perfect harvests from the fields, not blessing in the matter of perfect care and fodder for the cattle, etc. Sad in the sense of blessing are not. And so, of course, they will free those beings and free them of, the doctrines of these, the evildoers. But those otherwise, lead down towards the, place of the lie. And the 11th verse, we can connect to the 15th verse. Well, the best way to comment on Scripture is usually by itself. So there's that factor too. And will come first into his song home. Well, the result of the rituals, because these are the revelations or songs. You hear the Avesta, you hear the Quran, you hear the Vedas. Whether it's composed as a representative or whether it's straight up revealed or inspired, let things be art, right? Alternative would be Ahura will meet these engagements made when the reward was promised, or the reward which Zarathustra promised before Ahura came into Garodman, which gods beyond, limiting it to space, so, it's a way of speaking. But according to the general form of the Gathic sentence, ko est, para, go more naturally together than if the force of para was extended to kasat. The coming of Ahura is elsewhere mentioned. Here he enters his audience chamber before his approaching saints. Maga, well, it has a different context now, right? So of devotion in verse 16 may have some such cast a meaning. I have, moreover, more than once suspected the origin of Magian may, notwithstanding the Mogu of the later Avesta, may be simply this Maga so often used in the Gathas to designate the cause. And then we relate it, the sacred formulas, we relate that to verse 20. And the Pahlavi translator in his gloss to verse 17, his child, Aikam, Bartam, Pavan, Nes Marni, Bara, Yababun Edo, and for the progress of the good religion, we also see in reference to Zarathustra's daughter, 53, verse 4, and we have receive her with desire. Our cry ye for the gaining of Asha, righteousness, as in Yasna 29, verse 1, are the reading of a nominative. Gamaspa is choosing, which is itself, while possible, as var is conjuncted with n, but rapin seems a plural, and vido likewise. And he mentions glad witches in verse 18, because it's something he sees in the Pahlavi. And the grace if Gamaspo is read as a nominative in verse 18, Ahma'e might here refer to him, to this one. And going forward, I guess that was verse 19, are disposed, which might also be read, or let them grant. Seeking a dual here in the mention of may they seek, in verse 20, is disapproved by the source from which the suggestion originated. And he refers tem to Ahura, supposing it to stand, reading Tom, or Tom. I would refer to Asha. And we compare Vendidad 29:31 to the thrones of verse 22. So the Gatha, Vahista, Istis is where we go next. And some lay stress upon the literal form was heard in regard to the expression as indicating the fact that Zarathustra was no longer living. And, well, in the Bible, remember that stuff, and Moses, and Moses. And nobody arose in Egypt, among the Israelites like Moses. Moses wrote this? It's been a long time. I don't remember exactly how that went, but you know what I mean. It's clear that wasn't written by Moses. And it's clear that by certain things in the canonical Gospels that Jesus wasn't, he didn't know the people who wrote these books. But the prayer has been answered, that Ahura might free those who deceived. Oh wait, no, that's jumping ahead. The prospered, following the Pahlavi with all it as hu, ahu, inad, and following the Friftar of the Pahlavi, we have, so deceived him, as the conversion of those formerly hostile. It is suggested by Bauraya and Vruryana, not to speak of the primary rendering of Duserethris Kik Shnusha. The Pahlavi has, even he who is the deceiver, is to be instructed in the word and deed of the good religion. The manuscript should not hastily be abandoned. That more than a ritual sanctity is meant is certain, see Yasna 30, verse 3, but that no sanctity could be recognized apart from worship is equally undeniable. Who was the Zarathustrian Spitama? Some changed the text after the Pahlavi translator, reading Zarathustra Spitama, but I would not follow this example in a first translation of a translatable text. Why should a Spitama, who is not Zarathustra, be called Zarathustrian? Who were some of the Spitamas not in sympathy with their great kinsmen? Spitamas who were Mazdayasnians, but not of Zarathustra's order. One would, however, suppose that some one of Zarathustra's family was meant who occupied the position of his especial representative and natural successor. And the walaya is the Arabic phrase of what they call that. And in verse 2, the Yasna Confessions, free. And the making straight paths, recall the path made for the kind, and the way in which thou declarest to be that of the good mind, and which Ahura will found, that is, will permanently found, establish. Verses have been fallen out, some allusion must have been made to the bridegroom. Some more according to the hint of the Pahlavi and the statement of the Bundahis, west, in 32 verse 5, so Geldner, are he the Sa'avshant, the bride's father? Of the daughters of Zarathustra, him will they would give thee as a help of the good mind's true service. So maybe just like Muhammad, there was one daughter that stood out, and that daughter is for the example. And we have a mention of a chieftain, a protecting head, and a guardian. Counsel well then together. Also in verse 3, it is perhaps safer to refer this questioning to the pair, but forms of Ham with Paris are also used of consultations with the deity. See Yasna 33, verse 6, 44, verse 13, nearly necessitates the wider and less concrete view here. Varani looks somewhat like a gloss, but the meter seems to demand it. Her father's sanction was a reason for devotion to the man to whom he had given her. The Pahlavi translator has Siuri in verse 4, the bright blessing. Bet equals bod, lies certainly nearer than beat, bavat, with to me be a gang from his counsel, and relate that to the previous verse. And there's zealousness, jihad as it's called, among men and women. I mean, not the English jihad, but the Arabic jihad. And so would expel it. Expel the evil or illness from the body. Ge'ani is used in the other men and women. Elsewhere in an evil sense. And some words don't seem to be regarding bridesmaids. So the bride and the bridegroom, But anyways, bearing Vayu and his shame, we have if you bear or promote the interests of Vayu, the shame being evil food. You know, if you follow the religious prescriptions for what's lawful and wholesome, you often find what's lawful, you often find the wholesome just automatically part of it, because all that stuff in the ingredients, you just learn to skip and just eat plain old food, and you don't, it's so much easier. And so to expel it, I can only render this literally from the Droog A as a general guide, who, compare in Yasna 28, for mine, me, a watching guardian, I guide as Rathema, nominal singular with a verbal force, increasing prosperity, a progress of the Droog, I pray. Fourth, I exercise of the bond of the Droog, the malice injuries from the body or person, Yaseh para, if you bear or promote the interest of the Vayu. And again, you want to stay away from that evil food. And the line, if you follow his courses in verse 6, is gloss. Because that's in parentheses, because I would have whispered that. The first thought would be to eliminate the difficult second line, but the third line might be an effort by the poet himself or an associate to see the metrical form, to explain or relieve the awkward second line, reading Yama and Rathema and taking Ganeo as in an evil sense, with Spasutha as a second plural. We might render as a question, do ye, O ye twain, ye helpers of the Droog, do you regard promotion as thus to be gained? But in that case, verses 6 and 7 should be regarded as separated by many lost verses from the 5th verse, but it is not the first line, the gloss. It is merely an address, and free, and literally the greatness. And so, the champion, and then we move on to talk about the triumph. The difficulty lies here in the first line, which seems to declare a reward in a good sense. Misdem is hardly used of retribution and must therefore be taken up in a good sense. The following evil results must be supposed to have been avoided, and Vayu to be uttered in triumph. Vayu is used in an evil sense in verse 6. If Misdem could be supposed to express retribution, then evil men and women would be threatened, and Vayu would be a cry uttered in woe. As to Vayu, with its two natures, see part 2, and as in, like the index. And the foiling of the evil here recalls Ade Ba'ama. And, okay, and thus let the sinners by these means be foiled, verse 8. Because, you got to have some sort of method and stuff, just not, yes, pray if that's all you can do, is just supplicate, why not, but, and the consummation. The Pahlavi translator seems, to me, too free in rendering Zahyaka, Zan Isen, Homand, and makes a curious imitation of letters in Ge, Vahmar, 4. Ganar Am. It is, of course, far from certain that he had a present pretext. And see verse 9. The champion. Our champion. Yasna 46, verse 4, and verse 9 of what we've been talking about. Recall the delivering of evil into the two hands of Asha. Yasna 30, verse 8, and 44, verse 14. Krun Amka must be a gloss, and why it must be a gloss. The smiter, well, as a captive in battle, is in parentheses, but maybe it shouldn't have been in parentheses. As a captive in battle, and maybe should have chanted it better. Well, let him rout or stir them up. So, charge them. The document of anger menu uses a lot of that charge him talk. And death is the strongest. Compare Mazista, the strongest, in Yasna 49, verse 1, the prevailer, with the chaining of death, the greatest. And remember that talk in the Bible about the bands and chains of, right? Chaining death is the strongest. Okay. And in verse 9, the last one, thy helpers, refusers, conquer our honor from life, thy kingdom, and the right living poor are the notes that we're gonna have here. For nar peace, I can only suggest the suspiciously simple nar equals hero. Compare to the frequent na and p, nourish equals support. The Pali translator seems likewise to have had some such rendering in mind, where he translates dastabar as to regis. The Pali translation, which is here more than usually difficult, indicates in the direction above followed by a word which I would restore as regin end. The Pali translator Erlen's bridge in Pesho ars free with his Tan'a pu har kano homand. And Geldner has a note and refer to Yasna 46, verse 4, and compare the Ahuna, the Ario, which takes its last line from this place, and Yasna 34, 5. Vahyo is a variation for Vengius. Vahyo. Vengius. Vahyo. Yeah, that's it. And so we're moving on to the regular Yasna, and the whole thing commences. I announce. Here I have endeavored to imitate the swing of the rhythm by bringing up the sentences, especially in the second line. Literally, it would be with the desire, with the virtue conquering desire of the reprobate. Such freedom as above is often a critical necessity in the attempts to reproduce the warmth of the original. And we have whose body. I announce. Okay. Or I invite. But that word would seem equal to ava the yema compared to the Vedic vid ni. Also ni te va edda yeme and ni vo va edda yeme. And Yasna 1:22 and 21. The Pahlavi favors I invite. And okay, there's